Welcome to this week's episode of Art Wisdom with Chris and Kat. And this week, Kat, we're talking about pricing artwork, which is, can be a tricky one. We're going to try and simplify it as much as we can. But
I feel like it's one of the questions I get all the time from other artists, and you must do, and especially when you're starting out, like what's too much, what's too little, like where do you even start? How do you approach pricing your artwork, Chris?
I'm probably not going to help so much for a beginner here because of what I've felt like I have done now, where I'm at now, that it feels right, the price that it's at now, and I feel good selling it at that price. So if you're a beginner, that's really not going to help you probably at all. But like the starting thing for it, I suppose, with when I started, like everybody else, I just guessed, you just sort of guess, put a price on it, have a look around. But like being more experienced now, I'd say have a look, be aware of where you're at when you're pricing your art. There's a few things I'd say. Be aware of where you're at, because if you're just starting painting, you're not going to get the same pricing as somebody who's really experienced and been doing it a long time. You may do if your work is exceptional and you're just a natural and you started off and you're up there straight away. And there's another school of thought. If you've got a really good following as well for something that you're doing, then you can actually put your prices up. So art is a funny one, isn't it? Because it's really not cut and dry of what you can do with your pricing. Because actually you can do anything you like with your pricing.
100%. And I think also that's a challenge, right? Is because
it's a challenge.
It's subjective, right? I think I remember selling my first ever pieces, and I think people suggested prices to me and I went with it, which like I'm horrified at now.
Well, sometimes other people are a bit more brave than you. So, that can be a thing if you are starting off, to ask people.
I mean, I remember selling things that for like $50 that I would now sell for like $20,000.
But if you look back at that painting,
well, you gotta start somewhere, right? So I always say, like, a great place to start, although this isn't something that's like, also it depends, right? Has it already been done, or is it a commission? And like the way that those are priced can be different as well. But I always like to start with, $1 per square inch is a really good place to start. If you don't, unless you're selling little tiny ones, in which case obviously don't do that. But if you're selling like reasonably sized ones, so you can start off around a couple $100s for each. But I think what's important is whilst later on you don't want to necessarily attribute it down to how much physical time you're spending on that piece and the materials, because the value of the artwork should way exceed that. But I think that when you're starting, it's like a place to make sure that at least bar minimum that you're not below that. Because I think if I remember like talking to some of my friends that are sort of hobby artists, often when I talk to them about how long a piece is taken, and then I sort of tot up how much they're charging for it, and I'm like, that's below minimum wage. You can't possibly think that's okay.
You agree though, but when you start, you were much slower, because you sort of really, when you paint a lot, if you paint every day, you can get quite quick.
That is true, but I think that there is a balance with it. I would definitely think the first place to start with is don't rip yourself off. But also, you've got to start somewhere. So I always say like a $1 per square inch is a really great place to start. But that is enough to allow you to like test it out. Because if you find that things are like selling, you can like up your prices. To be absolutely truthful though, Chris, I am of a school of thought that if something doesn't sell, put it up in price. And I know that is so counterintuitive for so many people, but the truth is that people value like if you underprice your artwork, you know, firstly, you're competing with Target, or you're competing with, you know, a low price discount store, which, I mean, that's not what you're doing. Like, that should never be the case. Like, and don't ever use those, like, if anyone's looking at like, where should I price myself? Don't ever look at that. But it's like, you don't want to race to the bottom. It's what you want to be a race to the top. And let's be honest, like how people would assume like high skilled art, but you know, a Rothko, which is a block of color, sells for millions of dollars. Now, of course, there's provenance, there's history, but if you were just going all like, oh, you know, I'm basic, I can't afford to sell it for that amount. Like, so yeah, I feel like even at the beginning, I think one of the best pieces of advice is that, you know, your price, you know, you're not pricing your artwork for your buying potential, you're pricing your artwork for your client's buying potential. And I think one of the biggest breakthrough points for me was because I think part of the reason why I didn't want to price my artwork reasonably at the beginning was because I was really worried that the people that I love and care about, my friends, would never be able to afford my artwork. And the breakthrough point for me was when I started doing prints, because then I could totally separate it and be like, okay, if you've only got $30, here's a print, or if you've only got $50 or $100, here's a print. But if you want to buy an original, this is for you here. And I thought that was probably one of the biggest breakthroughs in pricing my personal artwork. Like, and the other thing for me is like, I think I started at $1.50, something along those lines per square inch when I started. And I'm now at $7.50 to $10, depending on like if it's a massive big scale one or like a medium scale one. It's just like increasing the price every year because inflation doesn't stop going up. Definitely at the moment. So, you know, if you don't put your prices up, you're actually going backwards in price in many ways right now.
That's a good point, actually, because that was a major thing for me when I started doing the prints. I realized that my artwork was too cheap. It wasn't I think I like tripled it in a short period of time. I was selling them, which is important because that gives you confidence as well that you can actually put your prices up. But then when you start to do prints, so that's a really good exercise for anybody to do, is actually go and see how much it'd be to get a fine art print made of your work, because you might be charging that for your original work, and then you can't sell prints. It's just not viable.
You go, oh,
yeah. And so if your print is $150 to sell, then you've got to look at your artwork and go, well, someone could buy a print, they've got to get it framed, so you can start putting, you know, a value on your artwork and thinking, well, that has to be at least triple times a print price.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that was actually super beneficial when I came to doing it. It came like, but as I said, like, the other thing is, I know that you said that at the moment you sell your artwork for a place that feels comfortable to you now, but when you started and you put your prices up, it probably didn't feel comfortable at all. It probably felt like, you know, and we all do it every time. Even now, every single time I need to put my prices up, I have this like, because, but again, it's like, if someone can't afford it, that's totally fine. Nothing wrong with that. There's different types of products for them. That's what prints are for if someone isn't able to order an original. So that's one thing. Now, I have heard people say, you know, don't price your artwork like, you know, you're selling a roll of carpet. You know, it shouldn't be per square inch. And in some senses, I think that is a good idea as well. It's just kind of hard to, like, I sometimes think that there are pieces that are kind of special that you don't necessarily, you feel like it should cost more. So how I've personally dealt with those is I've done like a little mini auction, and then we do have a podcast on like how to run an auction, and it's a sealed bid auctions, and no one gets to see what anyone else bids. And it's literally, they just message you with what bid price, as long as it's above a minimum. But I realized that so during my last sealed bid auction, the pieces that I would have normally sold for $1,000 or $1,030 were actually selling at one sold for $10,000. And I had this like, oh, you know, wow. And that wasn't even the high, like that wasn't even just the only high bid. There were other pieces that sold for, you know, $6,000 and $7,000, and they were like 12 by 12s. And I had this, oh my gosh. So I think in a strange sort of way, like a sealed bid is also an incredible way to figure out what the market is, because also the beauty is of that is that because no one else can see what anyone else bids, they are literally telling you, well, this is what, you know, if they really want that artwork, this is absolutely what their price is, you know, in a friendly, competitive way kind of thing. So that was also super helpful. But even now, like, there are pieces that, because I think that works out to something ridiculous. I can't even remember what it is per square inch now, based on that. But it would mean I would have to put my prices up like 5x or something, which makes me nervous. But what I was getting at when I said at the beginning, when you first put your prices up, it probably made you feel uncomfortable, is that actually I feel like at the beginning, when you do put your prices up, before you've got those few sales and you're like, oh, I'm confirmed with it, you do feel like, oh my gosh, is this right? I feel you know what I mean? You do. So when you do, I feel like you should feel slightly uncomfortable with the price that you give.
Yeah. And I think I felt as well like my art was getting better because I was painting daily. I felt, you know, I'm so much better, you know, like give yourself credit for what you do as well. You know, it's like I was looking at my work thinking, gee, it's good now, you know, really happy with it. There's nothing wrong with that. And so I wanted to put a good price on it as well, because when I sold it, I want to, you know, feel like a fair exchange. I didn't want to feel like I was, you know, giving something away more than they were getting in value. So that's when I say, like, it feels good to me now. I feel like there's a great value exchange there.
I do, yeah, because there are certain pieces that I've had that I know they're great, and I would feel actually devastated if I let them go for less. So there is probably a bit of that as well, is that if you feel like you're going to give a piece away, or like you're selling a piece, but then you're going to be heartbroken because it wasn't a fair exchange, that's actually a really good marker.
But that's a really good way to do it. It's a silent auction, because nobody knows then, because it's, you know, you have to be consistent as well. If you've got one piece, because buyers wouldn't understand, I don't think, that if you've got one piece, it's the same size as all these other pieces, but then you're charging 5 times as much for that one piece. I'm not sure about if you'd look unprofessional because it's not a consistent thing, and they don't understand why that one's like, you just found a buyer who absolutely loved that piece. And that's why artwork's so difficult to price, because if you find somebody who loves that piece, you know, the price can be, you know, very, very maybe unlimited, you know, they just want it and they'll pay for it, which you had with a few buyers with your silent auction there.
Yeah, that's actually very true. So silent auction, I think selling prints, but I think also looking at aspirational artists around you, but beware of which platform you're looking at. In particular, I'm just going to mention that in Etsy, I just see this tendency to be a race to the bottom. People are undercutting each other with prices, and that is not a healthy environment or a useful environment for any artist. In fact, I really dislike Etsy and those things, because it will literally show other people stuff similar to yours, but at a cheaper price. It's awful. Why would just but there are different websites that I think are worthwhile looking at. I really like the Saatchi or the Saatchi art website, they've got a platform where you can purchase artwork, have a look at it, because most of the artists on that particular platform definitely value themselves. And yeah, I think sometimes, yeah, just I think the other thing about like how you price your artwork is how much you produce and how much you want to flood the market. I obviously limit the times I sell to create a moment in time for people to purchase. And I also, on the back end, I'm also producing an email list so that when I have new pieces, if they are to be sold, that goes out straight away. But obviously, if you have like an almost unlimited supply of art pieces, I think that it's a little bit like the diamond trade, is that you want to, I always feel like having some like physical time limits, or having some sort of an event, whether it's a gallery showing or something, to help you actually have them, like, sell them, rather than just having them unlimited availability all of the time. What do you think about that, Chris?
Oh,
It's hard, isn't it? Right?
it's a tricky one, yes, because there's quite a lot of artists who have a lot of stock and they sell well. You know, they just,
that's true.
It keeps turning over. So yeah, you know, I think it's that thing, find your thing that suits you. You know, you found the thing that suits you. I'm happy to, I don't have masses of stock, but they are available all of the time. Well, all of the time. I have none at the moment because I've taken them, I'm traveling, so I've just stopped all of that, so none's available at the moment. That might create a bit of demand when I get back, hopefully.
Yes, sold out, Chris.
Yeah.
So also for the cost, like the way to price, now I always do commissions in this particular way, and I don't know if, do we have an episode? I don't know if we've got an episode on commissions yet, but we should definitely do one. So for commissions, I always do per square inch, always, because it's very difficult. I don't know if anyone's ever come to you and be like, oh, I kind of want a picture of this. How does it price work? And if you are like, I'm going to price it based on how complex the design is, the problem is you have to go, it's very difficult for a buyer. People will just want to feel confident that they can afford it, and you know, that they're going to enjoy the process. But like having all of that level of uncertainty, like, and I know that we mentioned this in a very early episode, but it's like trying to walk into a store that has no prices and feeling confident to take something up to the counter to get it scanned takes a lot. And you would never do it. If someone came across something in a store and they looked at it and it had no price tag on it, and there was no prices anywhere, so they couldn't gauge stuff, they just wouldn't check out, almost always. So I think it's very important to make sure it's easy for people to understand. And price per square inch for commissions is, like, for me, I feel like it's the easiest way to go about it, because you can basically say, hey, okay, so you're after a piece that's this size, it's going to be this much, and just price it for the most complex sort of work that you do. And therefore you will always feel, you know, confident that you can do it.
Yeah. I think I've lost a commission lately because she wanted a landscape one, and then it was like, oh, can you put these two people in it as well, which is fine, but that's more work. And you know, so I priced it for more work. And it probably, you know, like that thing, you look at my website, and I know I say I do them per how it feels like, but they're consistent. And if I probably looked into it more, I could probably now go, there is a square inch thing or a square linear meter thing going on, but I've just done it by instinct, sort of going, these are this side is this much, and kept the consistency between the sizes. And so with hairs, I made it quite a bit more because I thought there's more work in that, and I want to be paid if there's more work in that. So that's fine. And so if customers are looking at your website and going, they'll probably be around, you know, $3,000 or whatever, and then you go and then tell them it's an extra 1,000, that is a little bit of a, you know,
shock.
But also, you know, you can explain why that is and that, but really I wasn't that. Also, if you're that interested in doing it.
Right.
You're not to think,
Sometimes
oh well, it's going to cost you a bit more, because it's like, yeah.
I think there have been times where I've probably not wanted to do a piece, so I put the price on that I'm like, I don't want you to necessarily take this, and then they've gone and taken it out to do it anyway. But it's not a bad thing, because it
it's
means
worth it. It's worth all the extra
so
time that you're going to put in, and it is something which is going to take you more time and more work. You've got that time to spend on it, and you're not doing it thinking, oh gee, this is
right.
you're regretting taking it on. You're going, oh well, I'm getting well paid for this, so it's fine.
And I also think that a commission is a totally different service in the sense that it's totally customized. They have to spend time having interviews with you, or like getting to know. You've got to like work with them back and forth. Like I produce like a digital version of what the painting is, like a rough collage of things in Photoshop so that they can see. So like the service itself is way more than if you just you get the vibe and you just want to produce something and you're just doing it for yourself, right? And also I would say that doing a commission in some senses is a lot harder than just doing something because you just pure love that one thing. Even if you're being commissioned to do the thing that you love, there is something about having a commission that makes it a tiny bit more challenging, because you're also like second guessing yourself all the way through, like, are they going to like this? Is this right? Have I done right? So that also needs to be factored in. So I don't think there's anything wrong with having a slightly different commission price, but I just think that as long as up front on your website, you should have a section that says, I do commissions and this is how it works, and this is the prices and this is why. And I think people are pretty as long as people go in with the correct level of expectation, you're fine,
Yeah. Just transparency with it, isn't it? And if you're transparent and feel comfortable with your prices, that will come across to your customer as well, that you've got certainty. This is the way it is. This is how it works. You're certain, you're professional, and it probably wouldn't even get questioned about how much it is, because you're happy with it yourself.
Chris, do you remember the first piece of art you've ever sold?
Oh gosh.
That's a big question.
You think you would, wouldn't you? You think that would be a really...
Or what's the earliest one you can remember? I mean, that's a difficult question. Put you on the spot.
I know, yeah, but yeah, I really feel like it shouldn't be. I think it should have been one of those things that has gone, wow, that was so exciting, I sold a painting. And I think, I can't remember which one was the first painting I sold. Can you remember yours?
I think so. I actually think I sold one or two while I was in high school. Yeah. But I literally can't remember, because I can't remember anything that far back. I'll be honest, full haze. But I do remember the first one I sold when I started doing space paintings, and it was a Sombrero Galaxy, and the person just messaged me on Instagram and said, I'll give you $1,000 for it. And I thought, wow. and that was amazing. And then about 8 months later, someone offered me $8,000. They said, do you have this? I'll give you. And I was like, I've already sold it. Damn. So yeah, that was the first one. And I think that set me, that was a massive confidence boost. I've got to be honest. But it is hard until that happens, but also, if I remember correctly, when I started doing the art stuff, I actually did a Kickstarter first with prints. So I had a few originals, but I had actually never, and this is the other thing, I actually never intended on selling any of my paintings. I had zero expectations when I started of me being a successful artist. Like in my head, it didn't even exist. Like I didn't think successful artists were a thing. It absolutely was baffling when I sold pieces, because I thought, in my head, I'd always been told that artists, they're failures and they never make any money. And I was like, wait, someone's giving me money. This is weird.
That's probably a great way to start, though, isn't it? Like no expectations of anything at all. Yeah.
Well, that very first Kickstarter, the reason I'd done it is because I wanted to have an exhibition, but not because I wanted an exhibition per se. I just wanted to fill a room with alcohol and space stuff and get drunk and talk about space. Honestly, that was my simple ambition, to bring my friends together for a good old party. Because you know me, Chris, I love a good party. As you have experienced. So that was actually my first experience. And because in my head, I had to just raise $4,000 to hire a room in Sydney to put on this show. But it wasn't necessarily about actually selling out or anything like that. It was just about, I just wanted to have a party. So all of my art sales really are me trying to get my friends drunk, and it's gone horribly wrong. And here I am several years later with a full business.
And you love a space. You just wanted to talk space, surround yourself with space, and next thing
that was it.
You're an artist.
But I think that sometimes, because I remember recently, there's a guy I follow on Twitter, and he's a fabulous gentleman that's training to be a doctor, and he's also doing some artwork. And he was putting some stuff up, and he was just like, oh, I'm so scared, no one buys anything. And I told him the story, of me just wanting to get my friends drunk, and I just set a little tiny goal. And I thought, well, what happens if I don't sell anything? Doesn't matter, my friends will just be sober. There's worse things to be, you know what I mean? So I think that sometimes, like, setting a small something that is inconsequential, like it's not like life or death, like you've got to do all this stuff, which I understand is hard if people are trying to make a living from it. But at least I believe that when you start, you should at least side hustle this before you get the full pipeline working, because it is like, takes time to get it all going, But the thing that really set things going was, I had produced this Kickstarter campaign, so I was selling prints. So I had to sell my artwork for more than the cost of my prints, and that was such a good, and I honestly believe that every artist should do this, make prints, so that firstly, I think the act of digitizing your work and having a good, like, high resolution photography or scan or whatever it is of your artwork, firstly, it makes it easier to let go of a piece.
It does.
Because you feel like I've got some record of it, it's not like you're never going to see it again, because there are paintings realistically from before I did space stuff that they are lost to the sands of time, and I'll never get them back. And I'm a bit sad in some ways, because there's aspects of it that I can sort of vaguely remember, but I can't, because I just didn't have any photographs of it. So that's one thing. But secondly, it's like, you can ask the true price and not feel like you're excluding anyone. You can always be like, well, if you can't have the original, totally fine. Here's a print. It's, only, the print is only $50 or $100 or whatever it might be. That is so much of especially if people feel not used to like a sales environment, because also learning to sell your artwork is also about learning the fabulous nature of sales, right? And that can feel a bit challenging for people that are new to it. So having that alternative, I feel like you don't have to pressure anyone into, like, cause also you don't want to pressure people into, like, it's not about making someone buy something they can't afford, but that's why I love that. And I think that set me on a good trajectory.
Another way, like, if you're not sure of what you price things at, and I know just looking at other people's and similar works, it's all research. So it's like, it doesn't mean that you have to go, oh, theirs is like that, so I do mine like this. But you can go to art fairs and see what's going on in art fairs, because they're, people they've committed, they've spent a few $1,000s on a booth, the whole week or weekend that they're spending there. So they're serious artists, and they're usually really good standards that go to those art shows. So you can.
That's a great idea.
Have a little look at them and see what's going on there, but that also depends as well, like their pricing would be the experience, the quality of their work, and the following that they've got as well. So, like if you're looking at someone's and going, oh, mine's the same artwork of theirs, they've got 100, 500 followers, and you've got 100, then, got to do a bit of work on your marketing too.
Got to do a bit of work on the marketing.
Get up there.
all of it is within good time, and it, you know, and obviously we've got episodes on how to build your following and all of that kind of stuff, you know. But yeah, for sure, like I think the reason why I started at $1 or like $1.50 per square inch when I started, because I didn't know what I was doing, was I did watch another YouTube video that suggested it. And whilst I don't necessarily think it's the perfect way to go about it, I think that it's just a start, and it's a starting point.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes all you need. A combination of that, doing a bit of research, and then also like going to art fairs and like seeing what other people are doing.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Do you
Yeah.
remember your first piece you sold yet, or not at all?
I'm trying to think of it, and you know, I don't remember the first piece I sold, but I remember when I was in art college and I got a piece in an exhibition because they were just selecting a few. I remember that. That's like a real
Wow.
sticking thing too. That was so exciting, so exciting.
Aww.
Yeah. So not so much, and it's like maybe like you're saying as well, you were interested in the party and all of that.
Yeah.
This wasn't even to do with sales, it was actually to get into an exhibition, and it was probably the first time, maybe it was the first time because I was in a group of great artists. You know, you're in this environment, and then yours got picked out to be in the exhibition, and it was just like, oh my god, that's yeah. So but maybe it's not always about the money, hey.
No, not at all. Although it does help a little bit. It does help you to buy more art supplies.
Oh yeah, even if you're a hobby artist, the art supplies is expensive, isn't it? So it's really nice to get something back for your talent.
Right.
For your talent. We will all want to, why not be rewarded?
All right, Chris. So what are your top 3 takeaways?
Number one, it would be get a good understanding of where you're at. You know, don't sort of kid yourself and sort of go, well, they're selling theirs for $1,000, so I'm going to sell mine for $1,000, and your work is not the standard, and then you may not have the following. Because we can all look back and look at our first works, and like, you know, you can be like, oh wow, I've done this. But you know, like when you're looking 5-6 years later and you've been painting all the time, your first works aren't that amazing normally. So it's like, be realistic where you're at, but don't undersell yourself either. You check around, there's loads of art galleries, little art galleries, there's art shows, the art fairs, and you can get a good gist of where you feel you fit in. And then where you fit in, you probably, that probably leads me to my second one, to feel happy that you're going to sell it. So you'll find that level. And then when you go, oh, I feel comfortable with, you know, and if you do feel, you know, wherever you feel like, if your artwork, you may look back in 5 years and say it wasn't at that standard, but if you feel comfortable with whatever price that you're putting on it, I think you'll sell it, because you'll have conviction behind yourself as well. And be consistent is number 3. So when people look at your artwork, they can see that there is a consistency to the pricing. You've not got one which is off the charts just because you personally love it. If you personally love it, just live with it for a while. You know, I've got some in my house. I may sell them down the track, but I absolutely love them. So they're not going anywhere at the moment, because I'd be so upset when I sell them. So
that is such a good point.
Yeah.
Because you know what, like, I always say this to people, like, hold back some of your artwork and don't be upset if some of it doesn't sell, because like, imagine if you're having a retrospective, you know, and it's you as an artist 20 years down the line, and you've got pieces from 1 or 2 pieces from each year that you can put together into a show. And it's like, that's so amazing. Like, I have some of my really early pieces, you know, and I'll be honest, at first I was pretty bummed out that I hadn't sold them, but now looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, I am so glad that I kept hold of those, because now when I do a show, I can be like, this is my whole life, you know, my whole like life is all my journey as an artist. That's good.
And you've got the first one you ever did, because I remember when we had a show,
I
you
did.
took that and put that up, which is lovely.
Yes.
I think it's lovely. Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I kept my first one, thank goodness. And I know that's not possible for a lot of people because they've already sold it. But if you can hold the first one, it is quite nice.
Yeah, or if you're that attached to them, just keep them around for a while. And then you know what we're like, we'll paint another one we get attached to and go, oh, ready to let this one go now. And keep the other one for a little while.
Right.
It's fine, there's no
So,
thing saying we have to sell them all.
yeah. So my top 3 takeaways are: you are your buyers. Don't price for your buying potential. You are pricing for your buyers. And just remember that, I think the people that are buying my artwork are are people who are earning significantly more than what I'm making, and that's totally okay. It's a luxury market that I'm catering to, and I implore everyone to. You can if you wish. Number 2 is, don't compete with Target or Kmart or some like Amazon artwork. What you're making is special and unique and handmade, even if you're right at the very beginning, and even if you're like new to it and all of that stuff. I think that it's never healthy to try and compete with something that is mass produced, that's semi-soulless. So just consider that as well.
Totally different market.
Oh yeah, for sure. Number 3, which is totally the opposite of what you said, which is,
That's okay.
but that's okay. Your prices should make you a little bit uncomfortable, at least the first few times you sell at that point. Until then, it becomes comfortable, because the truth is, as I said, like, inflation goes up. We're noticing this more than ever. The price things that are on the shelf are going up. Gas prices, petrol prices, all of this stuff, everything is increasing. And that's just the general flow. Like, most global economies experience at least a 2% inflation every single year on year. So if you don't increase your artwork, you're actually falling backwards. But yeah, that first time does feel a bit like, even and I don't know, I put my art prices up every 6 to 12 months. And every time I'm like, I've done it. I've increased them 12 times at this point almost, and I still feel like that, and that's okay. The very first time you are going to feel a little uncomfortable, and that's all right. It will become comfortable after you've sold at that price for a little bit.
Yeah.
And I have a lucky fourth, which is, sometimes if something doesn't sell, it's not always about adding discounts. Sometimes it's about increasing the price. And I know that feels counterintuitive, but when people are buying your artwork, they're buying it as an appreciating asset, right? So the idea is, we're making, hopefully, not throwaway pieces. We don't want to price it so that people feel comfortable throwing it in the garbage, because that is absolutely not what your artwork should be. It should never be bin fodder, ever. So price accordingly so that no one would want to do that. But they hold on to these assets and they increase in value. As you grow as an artist, as your following grows as an artist, they will increase in value. So I think that it can be very destructive. And I always just tell people not to do this, which is to offer discounts and cut their prices of their art. Because what you're saying is that, you're just, it's not setting a good tone for art, in my personal opinion. I know a lot of people try to do discounts and all of that stuff to shift a lot of stuff. I think it is better to add value rather than to discount. It's just my personal thing. So like, if you wanted to, you could add in free shipping, or you could add in, a frame, which I sometimes do with my originals, or you can add in some thing additional to it. I've been told an amazing one recently, which is, if someone orders a commission piece, and it's a big or large or expensive commission piece, is to make take photographs and write the little story of the process, and then get it made in, you can get those little books printed up. So that they have a little, it only has to be small. It can literally be like almost postcard size with only a few pages, but to show the progress of the art piece and the little story of its creation, so that people have that little keepsake that goes along with the painting. Like, you can make things, you can add value in so many ways. Like, for instance, Another great way to add value is to have like, client appreciation parties, to have like I call some of my clients up, and we just have scheduled catch-ups, and just to see how they're going, and they just appreciate those little personal touches. And of course it's time out of my day, which is fine for the right clients, of course, but you can add value in so many more ways than just a discount. And a discount, unless it's probably like for a physical stock item like a print, but even then I don't like to discount my prints either. So anything else you want to add, Chris?
I think it was a good point about the prints that we talked about earlier. I think it's worth having a number 4 on that as well. Like if you get the, to go and price what it would be to get prints made of your artwork. You've got to get the digital copies or photographs, and then you've got to get them printed. So, if you're not sure, if you just no idea of what to price your artwork at, go and see what it would cost for a print, because you need to, triple that or whatever.
Absolutely.
For your, at least for your original artwork.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, everyone listening, do you price your artwork differently? If you have a different method, tell us in the comments below. We'd love to hear. And if you're having any challenges, let us know. All our social media links are down in the description. And if you want to give us a follow, make sure you don't miss any future episodes. Our next episode, we're going to be talking about copyright for artists, and I can't wait. See you next time.
Bye.